Welcome everyone to the VO Dojo 21 Questions. I'm Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei here in Burbank, California of the VO Dojo, Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California. And I'm super excited to welcome Tom Antonellis as our guest sensei and asking him the 21 questions. So when he joins us for Ask the Sensei, we can be there to answer your questions. So Tom, so glad you could be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And
Mm,
thank you for carving out the time in a time. I'm not in LA right now, but I am back and forth between LA and the East Coast. And I know it's insanity right now in LA. So, right off the top, I'm sure I speak for Tish, where our hearts go out to everyone
yeah,
affected. And I know
yeah.
that you're on pins and needles because of where you are, always keeping an
Hmm.
eye on evacuation orders, and I know you probably have friends who have lost their homes. I know I do. Um,
Hmm.
I will say Nava has set up resources. The VO sounding board just posted a resource document.
Hmm.
We have a few, um, and specifically for studios, we just
Hmm.
recently posted one. Studios that are willing to work with folks who are under duress, need to turn
Yeah,
around an audition, need to record a session for either reduced cost or no cost or pay what you can sort of arrangements. So
yeah,
definitely check those resources out.
yeah.
But
It's been
I
a
definitely couldn't start
particularly
this without saying anything.
yeah, no, it's been a harrowing week. It's been a heart-wrenching
Wrenching.
week,
Perfect. Perfect word.
heart-wrenching week. And also just like everything in the voiceover community, so powerful to see how everyone's coming together and remembering that we are all we have.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, your heart, your heart is huge. I think that's one of the reasons that I am excited to have you here
Thank you,
joining,
Tish.
because your heart in work, but in the world is a powerful thing.
Thank you.
So,
It's
I
always
guess
yours.
I guess that kind of answers the first question of the 21 questions, like what's your one word check-in? But is there a word that describes exactly this moment right now?
Yeah, it's whatever it is. It's a heartache related word.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough moment that I feel is on the heels of three other really tough moments. Um, for our four, if you count an ever-present vulture,
Mm, right.
uh, the COVID as a shared experience for the world.
Mm,
Although voiceover specifically pivoted pretty well during the pandemic because we were set up to do recordings and
hmm.
that was some of the stuff that could be made, but the general overall industry, entertainment industry, suffered tremendously. And then we went into two prolonged strikes, one which is still going at the time of this recording.
Hmm.
And without coming out of that strike yet, we have this horrible blow to Los Angeles when everyone had hoped to have the start of a year that was positive. And
Hmm.
then circling like a frickin' vulture
Hmm.
is AI. And it's just part of every conversation, and
Hmm.
it's in the ether. And just this week leading up to this interview, a ton of friends found that they had their voices illegally cloned on some rinky dink stupid looking website that promotes you can have your favorite voice actor say anything you want.
Mm,
That's like the plug.
right.
And if anybody has had that happen to them, Nava has resources on that too. So yeah, so I hate to give a negative word as my one word check in, but ennui. maybe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No,
But
it's
at the minute I say that to myself, I have this in my pocket, and I
mm.
carry this, and I've carried this throughout 2024. And I decided at the beginning of the year, I said, no, it's got to stay in the pocket, and I share it freely with everybody. I think I posted about it.
Yeah.
You don't simply,
Can you say it in your voice? Yeah.
sure, you don't simply have a positive attitude. You must cultivate one, fight often to obtain one. Oh,
Hmm. Here's the fight happening.
or
Yeah.
achieve having one, and then continue the fight to retain one.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely.
And I don't
Absolutely.
know if when you watch that it's backwards. It appears
No,
backwards.
it's it's good.
But um, that that's who I am. What
Hmm.
I feel right now might be on the spectrum of positive and negative, a negative feeling. It's
Hmm.
tough to feel good right this second with so much going on. But who
Hmm.
I am is somebody who will find the positive come hell or high water.
It's good. It's good.
So that's more than a one word check in, but that's
It's
that's usually how it is with me.
it's it's
One word's
complex
tough for me to
times.
do.
It's complex times. Yeah, it's good. And
This is positive. Being
mhm,
with you is positive.
yeah,
Learning
yeah,
from you, talking with you, connecting with you.
yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Well, let's go to the foundational questions. Where are you from?
I'm from, and I'm currently in a small town. It's actually, I say a small town, but in my life it's grown up to be quite big. Uh, Natick, Massachusetts. I was born in Newton, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Lived for a great deal of time in Natick most of my life, most of my life leading up to college. Went to college in Syracuse University.
Hmm.
Graduated in '96, so you can do the math. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And almost immediately after doing some saving, moved to California.
Hmm.
It was there for strictly there for many, many, many years,
Oh,
decades,
wow.
and now I am bicoastal, back and forth between LA and Massachusetts. And right now I'm back in Natick, and the
Hmm.
actual house that I grew up in.
Oh,
This room
wow.
used to be my sister's bedroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Very cool. Very cool. You didn't even know you'd be doing Zoom calls from it.
right.
Yeah. What would we know your voice from?
So while I consider myself successful, I still feel that most of my stuff is behind the scenes, things that you blink and you miss it sort of roles. But
Hmm.
some of the more recent prominent parts were have been in audio drama recently,
Hmm.
which is kind of nice. So if you caught Chinook, which is a really great uh, kind of a True Detective except audio drama sort of
Hmm.
podcast.
You got the hat for it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I loved it. Um, yeah. So I would check that one out, and I'm featured. But again, it's kind of a blink and you miss it because I did a lot of vocal chameleon work in that.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't. A couple of them sound like this, but a lot of them are, um, you know, grabbing that knob and going off the everyday speaking voice and giving something, so I could play multiple roles. So I did
Hmm.
serve them in a multiple role capacity, and that's something I do a lot. Um, but yeah, so that was one of the coolest ones. Sanaa Lathan is in it, and Kelly Marie Tran. She played Rose in the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's a great. That's probably the most recent and the most prominent. Yeah.
Very cool.
Audio
Very cool.
dramas. I was in Chippendale Rescue Rangers, but it's kind of a blink and you miss it thing. Uh, I did some work on Avengers Endgame, again, blink and you miss it sort of thing.
Hmm.
But that's that's kind of my. I'm a utility player,
Hmm. Hmm.
not a star pitcher yet.
There you go. There you go. There's a positive attitude. How long have you been doing voiceover?
That's the I get that question a lot, and I, it's one that I've kind of deleted the answer in my brain. But even if I could retain the answer, I have decided I'm not going to tell people that one particular thing about my history exactly. I'll tell them it's long, a long time.
Okay.
Um, because and if you have the question like how long did it take for you to become um, full time? That's another one I
Mhm.
get a lot. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's on the list. I think it
Yeah,
is.
it is actually. It
Yeah.
is actually on the list because
Uh,
I think it's actually helpful for people to know that
yeah.
things take a while and it's an ongoing process. So,
I will tell you, I have yet to meet anyone who has had a longer period of time to go full time than me. So that's my answer to that one. I answer both of them a
okay.
bit obliquely because I'm afraid I don't want anyone to be discouraged
Mm.
by my
Okay.
answer.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was a spectrum of how long it takes to, well, how long I've been in voiceover, I could actually give you three answers because I think the trajectory toward it is one starting point. The
Mm-hmm.
stepping away from on camera and really focusing on it could be argued to be a second starting point.
Mm-hmm.
The point at which I made the right moves the right way, really strategically, you could argue could be a third starting point.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And somewhere in there was the move to full time,
Got
somewhere
it.
in
Okay.
between those starting points. So it's a real tough, when did you start in voiceover? You could argue it was in this bedroom playing with Julie,
Right.
doing, you know, doing mock commercials or doing impressions of commercials
Right.
that we had seen on TV. I mean, like, I kind of consider that the beginning of my journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I suppose, another starting point you could say was competitive forensics speech
Mm-hmm.
team
I
in high
understand that.
school.
I think that is a I think that is a hotbed. Like I
Yeah,
think back to my years doing that. I'm from Chicago, but I lived in Colorado for high school and was very involved in that. And
that's great.
yeah,
I didn't know that about you.
that's that's a really powerful. Like you think everything you do in that is basically interpreting
Yeah,
and bringing things to life,
absolutely.
bringing words to life. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
But yeah, I have yet to meet somebody who's taken longer to get to a full time voice actor than me. I'm sure there are some people that tie me, and I'm sure there's somebody that took longer, but I haven't
Hmm.
met the person yet.
Yeah.
And that is classic Tom Antonellis life.
Mm.
Nothing moves at the speed I want it to. And comedically and somewhat with a little bit of tongue in cheek, I can be pissed at that for a
Mm.
second. But then I just say, everything also, everything I've achieved, I really have. Right? It is not
Mhm.
at, I can't lose it. I'd have to suffer brain damage to lose what I've
Careful.
lost. I
Yes.
know. Yeah.
Careful. But that's not happening.
Right.
Yeah.
I've
No,
worked
it's
really
powerful.
hard and
But
I
here's the
take
thing.
pride in that work.
Yeah,
And
here's the thing
despite the
is
fact
that,
that it didn't go at the speed I wanted, that's just my life. It's
and
very classic for my life.
that's your gestation period.
Yeah,
That's what we talk about at the dojo all the time. Everyone has their own gestation period. And
absolutely.
when it's time for this work to be, if it is the calling, if it is,
Yeah.
then yeah, so that's beautiful and that's powerful. That's
And it
powerful.
takes a certain belief before it hits, too.
Hmm.
I had so many opportunities. I'm sure this is not anything new for me, but I had so many opportunities to give up. So many opportunities.
Hmm.
People told me to give up. People
Interesting.
who cared about me told me to give up. I was not having it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to do.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
will add in, I didn't necessarily think about becoming a dialect coach when I started,
Hmm.
but what I was doing back when I was not full time, I taught ballroom dancing. So I've been an educator in the arts for many, 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 many,
Yeah.
many, 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 many years, more than half my life at this point. And um, it that was a marriage I didn't expect. I didn't expect my all that I learned about teaching, which is I've forgotten more about teaching than some people will ever learn at this point. And I have a very high standard for teaching, and I thank a lot of my teachers in ballroom dance, but also a lot of my teachers in acting for teaching me for cultivating in me the standards for excellent education, which I hold
Hmm.
myself to.
Hmm.
So I didn't although it should have been predictable, I didn't expect to find a niche that others needed that really called to me to teach.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
became. And that was a beautiful, beautiful, um, unexpected, area of my career. And I'm
Right.
known for it.
Hmm.
It's part of the brand, and that's
Right.
beautiful. I love that about my brand, and I love
Yeah.
that teaching could be part of my could continue to be part of my VO journey when I stepped away from ballroom dancing to do voiceover 100%.
Hmm.
I did not really want to leave teaching.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it was really beautiful that life delivered me dialect coaching and the other areas in which I coach.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to hear more about the dialect coaching because that's where I think. But I also want to bring up, I love that you're a ballroom dancer because I often use that metaphor. One of our dojo members, previous in one incarnation in her life, was a competitive ballroom dancer, and I would always just be like, "Girl, you know this. If you think about the parallels between
So many.
ballroom dancing, there's different genres that you have to." Be able to
Yep.
step up and do and understand fully. And each of them has a different rhythm and a different approach and a
Yep.
different mindset.
Oh yeah.
And it requires we can all go to cotillion lessons and go one, two,
Right.
three, four. But when you can find the nuances in a ballroom dance, that's one and a two and a three and a four. And that, like
Yes.
that's voiceover, right? And it requires you have to show up, you have to practice, you have to be there, and you have to be competitive. I mean,
And you,
ballroom dancing in
yeah,
general is for joy, but if you're a competitive ballroom dancer, you
yeah.
have to show up and you have to have the costumes and you have to have the partnerships. Like there's so many
So many
parallels.
parallels, and you have to have made some bad art. You have to
Yes.
have screwed up. You got to learn how to pivot. Not
Literally.
everything, literally and figuratively. Not everything goes the way you wanted. Even if you
Yep.
were to work it all out on a competitive ballroom floor, one other couple getting in the way means you can't do your full routine. You got to stop, fill time for a second, and then continue with it.
Right.
It has to be
Right.
done in that case, non-verbally, but it has to be done through lead and follow, which means you're never doing this.
Hmm.
Even I would argue, even on a self-directed session, you're never doing this solo, because
Yes. Yeah.
your directing ear is either it with you while you're performing or listens after you performed, depending on how
Hmm.
well you can be present while you direct while you
Yeah,
perform.
the whole taking direction. I
Yeah,
often use that metaphor too. If you're
total lead and
a
follow.
good director will just go ching and get
Yep,
you exactly where you need to be
for
for
sure.
to yeah, no, that's great. And then there's something on the other side of leading that is relinquishing
Yes.
too. I know it cracked me up like, years ago going to wedding dance, wedding dance, ballroom dancing, where
Yeah.
all the women who had been in control of everything had to be like, okay, honey, take it
Yes.
over here. I can't do anything but relinquish. There's so many metaphors, so many powerful metaphors. And for me, that is like, oh, okay. So your voiceover career took a long time, but everything that you're bringing to the party was happening for all of that time. So
I agree with that.
it's not, it seems like it could be separate, but it's not
Yes.
really. It's not really.
No
Yeah.
actor's life is ever separate from the journey.
Yeah. So tell us about your dialect coach work. That's a really specific and powerful thing to have and to be known for. Tell us about your practice there and how did that develop?
Yeah, well, it was very interesting. The first client I ever had was a kid. He's actually very successful, and he he works more than me. He works more than most of my clients, and he needed to do a transatlantic dialect, transatlantic slash mid Atlantic, whatever term you end up hearing. They're both used, and they actually could mean as many as five different meanings. There's not a lot of consistency out in the ether about what that means when it's asked for. You almost have to know all five meanings, and then you have to use context clues from whatever is being put in front of you to know, do they mean that sound of like old time Hollywood in the 30s and 40s, or do they mean, the sound of that not quite British, not quite American thing that takes place in every Blizzard game you ever listen to? And that's not it. There are three more uh, definitions. So, by my count. And since both transatlantic and mid Atlantic are used, you could argue it's 10, five meanings, and you could use either word for it. So it's like 10 possible meanings, whatever. So I, at the time, always been a big old time Hollywood fan. So I definitely could do that, sort of Cary Grant sort of sound. What is it you want from me, Susan? Sort of sound, and numerous other people from that era, or BBC sort of newsreel sort of you know 1940s newsreel sort of sound. I could do all those things, and that's the iteration of transatlantic that he needed for the role. It wasn't something more fantasy related at the time, but I did not fully get it. And I was like, my friend said, can you help with, I have been teaching improv and I'd been teaching acting through her theater. And she said, could you work with him on this? It's for a big audition. And I said, I can, but, is it urgent? Because I think I might need a few days to do my own research and clear up my understanding of it. And she said, yeah, it's not urgent. He has like a week. And so I spent a couple of days really diving in to quickly learn that there's not much on this particular dialect. There's not much out there. Like there's no book on it. So I aggregated just a ton of information about it and wrote my own rules on it and thought, again, drawing on the experience of teaching ballroom dancing teaching, I was like, how am I going to convey this? And he was a kid, and I was like, plus, I don't know how much, I don't know what his strengths are, as a person, yet let alone he's a kid. He's still learning the English language.
And probably hasn't watched a lot of oldie-timey movies.
No, no, that's true. I did not think that he had. Yes. So all those things came together for an interesting teaching challenge. And I said, I told the woman at the time, the person referring me, I said, let them know, this is what I'm going to charge them, but they only pay it if it's a successful session. If he feels that he learned and he's prepared and he walked out better than he walked in, then they can send me the money. Otherwise, I've enjoyed looking this up and I'm happy to work with them. So that's what we did. And it was Zoom. Uh, and I loved it. And he succeeded. And he did well. And he booked the part, I found out later. And um, the other thing is, he's an Indian actor. He's of Indian descent from India. And right away, I was faced with another challenge with them. A couple months later, they came back to me and they said, can you teach the Indian dialect, Indian accent, so that he can go after roles that are for his, because he's a kid, he's an American kid born here,
Right,
sounds
right.
like a kid, doesn't have an Indian accent at all. In fact, the father doesn't even. It's the grandparents. It's at the grandparent level that they did, and some great aunts and stuff. And now here, I'm immediately faced early in the dialect coaching career with, I'm not Indian. Can I, in good conscience, teach this kid how to imbue his culture when it's not my culture? And while it's completely useless and I would never use it, I just happen to be able to do an Indian accent. I can do one. Um, Totally useless for me. So I found another thing with that first client, who at this time was not my first client anymore. I'd
Mm,
gained more clients immediately through word of mouth, but this was he was coming back to me for this second project, and we'd been so successful on the first one,
mhm,
teaching that dialect and having him book the part. And now he's wanting to do an Indian accent, which is his birthright and
mhm,
is not my birthright. So I had to make a decision. He was my client and he needed me, and they were turning to me, and I had success with him and he had success with me, and I could do it. So is it right to do it? So I said, I'm going to record a piece of material with
mhm,
my Indian accent, and I want you to play it for the grandparents and the great aunts.
mhm,
And if three of your um, relatives sign off on me, then I'll
mhm.
work with you.
Okay.
So I
That's
made
great.
them vet me,
Hmm.
and I figured that was the dude. I can't change my background,
Right.
but I can give him the skill. And I knew he could do it. I knew he could do it because, uh, well, that particular accent is rooted a lot in British
Hmm.
due to colonialization. And the transatlantic dialect that we'd worked on was rooted a lot in British influence as
Hmm.
well. A totally
Hmm.
made up dialect, and but it drew upon Britishisms, in
Hmm.
the finishing schools and Hollywood classes that in which it was popular in the early 20th century. So I knew he could do it, and he did a great
Hmm.
job. And now
Hmm.
he has a new ear to listen to his aunts and uncles
Right.
and
I was just going to
grandparents.
say he has it
Yeah,
and he knows what it is.
yeah,
And he has
and
the
he can
rhythm. He understands.
notice the things they do verbally,
Hmm.
and he can replicate those now because he's not just been taught the accent or dialect, he's been taught how to learn it.
Hmm.
Same with dancing. It's at the beginning of dancing, you're not just learning to dance, you're learning how to dance.
Exactly.
And same with dialects. The first dialect you work on, you're working on it, but you're also learning how to learn dialects. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm so happy that I was able to empower him with. I'm getting emotional thinking about it because now he can go after things that were always his to go after
Hmm. Hmm.
because I gave him a skill and not just the ability to do a certain. This is the same thing with ballroom dance.
Hmm.
On Dancing with the Stars, they teach you how to survive that one number. It's not
Hmm.
really real. But when you're teaching somebody to learn how to ballroom dance, you're
Yes.
teaching them to dance to any music that is appropriate for that dance, not just, Michael
Hmm.
Bublé's
Right, right, right.
one song that you've chosen and you have 2 weeks to bone up on it or 2 weeks to crash course on it in the show.
And then there's that combination in everything we're talking about, voiceover, accents, ballroom dance, that is where the technical and the organic meet, that there are technical things that you need to know and be aware of and have
Yes.
in your body.
Yes.
And then what we're getting to is that it's just organically in you, and you
Yes.
just know, oh, I'm going to Roomba now.
Yeah.
I'm going to do an Indian accent. I'm going to do a
Yeah.
Essex accent. I'm going to do it. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
very, very exciting. And it sets a lot of, I think, speaking real quickly, because I think it's important to say this, there's a line, there are accents and dialects I won't go after. There's a line.
Mm,
Basically, my line is pretty simple. If there's somebody in the community that looks like this with this complexion, I'm going to
hmm.
go after it.
Hmm.
And I'll only back off from going after it if I really can't replicate it.
Right, right.
And but if nobody looks like this, or the community is not someone, it doesn't represent this makeup,
Hmm.
that's for somebody else to go after,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah.
So I think it's important to have that line, but short of that line, and certainly if it's in, again, complexion appropriate and within this country, the lower 48, I pay taxes. I am a citizen. I have earned I'm going after, if I can vocally achieve it and it's in this country, I'm going after it,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So Southern dialects, New York, it's I'm going after it.
That's
Um,
cool. Mm.
and and I like uh, setting actors free by having a line and then telling them what I'm going to go after, and they will go, okay. I had a client, still have it. We still work together. They have, I want to obscure even their gender. They have lived in this country. They are a citizen of this country. In their natural speaking voice, have a British dialect. They've lived in this country, married. Their spouse is American. Two children, American. Paid taxes, live in an expensive city, contribute to the community, go to church, help out at school. By and they are naturalized in every way an American. That's the cool thing about America. You can become American.
Mm.
You know, you can become a French citizen, but you can never become French if you aren't French.
Mm.
America's special.
Mm.
Yet she never felt that she had the right to go after
Mm.
even the simplest straight down the middle general American role.
Mm.
And we worked for a bit and we wept as she realized what she didn't feel her country. She is
Mm.
American,
Mm.
that she didn't feel part of it on a basic artistic level.
Mm.
That she didn't feel she had the right to go after that. And when I empowered her to really just wrestle control over British regionalisms,
Mm.
and she could do it. She absolutely can do a Gen Am. One day she said, I feel like I could do this. I said, you always could do it.
Click your heels.
Yeah. And she felt like she finally, I, I think she was kind of saying, I finally feel like I'm an American now,
Oh, wow, that's a powerful.
because she could be an American in her work,
Hmm.
always thinking of herself as British. And now I've revealed that it's a she. But anyway,
Yeah. That's a powerful story. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, it's powerful to be a part of that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you are a powerful part of other people's teams. Um, how would you describe what is your current team? And I'll let you define that as you will. What is your representation?
Right, right.
Rely on, like, just because I think one of the really important things about coming up and continuing on, just like with the positive attitude with your voiceover career, is recognizing that it's always just us, but we never do it alone. So it's always
100%.
good to know, like, so what does that look like for you?
Well, I would consider, you know, when I don't remember exactly what I said in my speech, but when Nava honored me with the B. Brad Voiceover Community Award, the
Hmm.
first year that they awarded it, um, I mentioned how much it meant when somebody amplifies you.
Hmm.
So that gift, it's such a huge gift for an artist, and it could be anybody who's ever booked me. I thanked anybody who's ever booked me.
Hmm.
I really feel that it's the people at which and I do a lot of amplifying myself. If you follow me on
Hmm.
social media, that's a big
Hmm.
thing. You're amplifying me here today. Thank you, Tish.
Hmm.
So I consider really anyone who is promoting me and speaking of me in terms of, yeah, he's viable, you want him,
Hmm. Hmm.
those are those people are part of my team, which of course includes an agent,
Right.
four agents. I have four agents.
Hmm.
The library agency in LA, uh, Law Lapidus Company or MCVO in Boston, um, ZT agency in Pacific Northwest, and Red Raven Talent in Vancouver.
Hmm.
And I'm open even to more. I might have some discussions this year. We'll see. Um, so yes, 100% my agents. Really,
Hmm.
anyone who amplifies me and gives me
Hmm.
opportunity. So there are people who have responded to the goodwill about my coaching out in the ether and have
Hmm.
had me at um, conferences, you know.
Mhm.
So the One Voice conference team, the VO Atlanta team, the or hosting, for example, the speed dating with your demo at that's
Mhm.
Voiceover, where we last saw each other in person.
Mhm.
The Sovis team,
Mhm.
I consider those people teammates on my journey. 100% my sister, my mother, and my father.
Mhm. Mhm.
They've been Team Tom since day one, literally. Um, and yeah, I really feel, I was looking at 2024 because I was doing my totals, uh,
Mhm.
yearly totals, getting ready for taxes. And I looked at it and it was staggering to see how much work came from referrals.
That's powerful. Mhm.
And one thing I think is the most important to me is how I'm seen in the community, which is why
Mhm.
Nava's honoring me with that award just
Mhm.
meant so much. That felt like
Yeah.
my lifetime achievement award. It really did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I get to enjoy it early in my career.
That's
So,
good.
and that speech was what yeah, I took a long time because they gave me a good window, but it's more of a speech than any
Mhm.
Oscar or Emmy winner would ever be granted the time to do. And
Yeah, that's
it,
great.
it felt it was such a gift to be able to say what I said to those people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and I would add the Nava team and SAG-AFTRA teams that are fighting for us.
Mm. Yes,
They are
absolutely.
constant teammates for even for those who aren't members.
Right. Right. Yeah, that we are part of the community. Yeah.
You might have asked me what time it was, and I told you how the clock worked on that answer, but
That's okay. That's
that's
okay.
my team.
We get a good insight into. Now, on the technical side, what is your setup now? And I think it's also helpful for people to know what it has been, if there's been an evolution. So if you want to just give a
Oh,
tight answer of
100%
what
there's
you
been
are
an
now and
evolution.
where you started. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I got some not so great advice early on, and bought some less than thrilling mics in the early phases. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's an evolution. Now, currently, I'm doing a booth redesign. Like uh, I'm making the Boston branch of the Tom Antonellis business as good as the LA branch. So,
Very good. Hmm.
right now I'm redesigning a booth. So
Hmm.
I have kind of a makeshift scenario for the booth,
Hmm.
but ultimately it'll be a designed space,
Oh,
as opposed
you're
to
treating a whole room.
yeah, I'm treating a
Hmm.
room. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's going to be
Cool.
kind of an office space and library and recording space. So
Nice.
yeah,
Excellent.
so that's going to be great. But that's slow going. And I'm really trying not to rush myself. I want to do it
Right.
exactly the way I want to do it.
Good.
You ever see those little, when you were a kid, little puzzles? They're like flat tile puzzles, and you move one
Oh
tile
yeah.
at a
Uh-huh.
time.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot that has to happen before I can get that exactly right. So that's
Right.
the phase I'm
But
in
you
right
have
now.
the vision of it, so it's
Yeah.
already done.
Oh, totally. It's
That's
all
the
done like uh, Alfred Hitchcock. It's all edited and shot in my head.
That's
Um, but as
great.
to the mic, it's a Rode NTG5, which is a small shotgun,
Hmm.
similar to the Sennheiser 416, in terms of like sound and vibe
Hmm.
and yeah, but not quite as expensive as a Sennheiser.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's great mic. It served me well. When I upgraded to that mic, I had a noticeable increase in bookings. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's
Interesting. Yeah.
trackable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about your origin story and voiceover, and we know you got started in ballroom. I heard you also have had an on-camera
Yes, I
career.
did. Yes.
Um, so
And recently, I've been did some on camera work recently too.
oh, that's exciting. That's
Yeah.
that's super cool. I'm always in I'm always like dispelling is the word I'm thinking. I'm always dispelling if people are like, oh, I want to get into voiceover, but it's going to take away from this. I'm like, oh, contraire, mon frère. This is like it's going to deepen and extend and open up new places in
For
your
sure.
own camera doing this. Yeah. So You mentioned three phases. So
Yeah,
if you could define those phases without time frames, but
yeah,
those phases, and then I think you mentioned something of a break moment or a moment moment of achievement. So I don't know if you would say that was your big break, but
mm,
so I don't want to confuse the questions. But
yeah,
what how would you define those phases? Because I think that is something that's really important for people to know that, you know, at the dojo we have our development division and our working pro division. And even within the working pro division, we're continuing to refine, like we
for
call
sure.
it degrees of black belt, right? That you
Yeah,
do the training and then you have these degrees of black belt.
for
And
sure.
when I hear you talking about these phases, it sounds a little bit like degrees of black belt. You've
Mhm.
been on the journey,
Yeah.
but then, yeah. So how would you succinctly say those three phases were? Or, you know, like what, you know, yeah, what was the journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is why I don't really have one answer to when I started, because I really do feel that these were major moments.
Mhm,
Certainly, absolutely becoming somebody who could act, embody characters, improvise, mimic, all of that is
mhm,
attributed to my childhood play with my sister. So I'm 4 years older than her, and when she was old enough to really play with me, that to me and to her, we feel
mhm,
is the beginning of our journey as actors. She's also an
mhm.
actor. Julie Antonellis is her name, by the way. Julee Antonellis. Her name is made up of Julia and Lee, our grandparents,
Ah, very good.
grandmothers. Yes, so that was the beginning of my trajectory toward
Hmm.
acting. Unlike Julie, I was shy, on the shy side. She was
Mm-hmm.
more outgoing. I was more shy. And I, for many years, I was a two-dimensional artist. I still am.
Okay.
You can
Hmm.
see some of my drawings on my Instagram. So that was always something that I was doing. So I was always artistic, but I wasn't necessarily always a performance artist. Julie
Hmm.
gravitated to all the performing arts far earlier and
Hmm.
was less inhibited. I was like I say, more inhibited. I was shyer. So a critical moment was joining the speech team, and it
Hmm.
was mainly because I was by no means a candidate for sports in high school. No way. But my parents recognized the need for an extracurricular activity, and
Mhm.
my mother had a friend who had a daughter who was in speech team. So I
Mhm.
remember the first time I went to the first speech team, I didn't want to go, did not want to go. My mother said, "You don't have to go more than once, but you have to go. If you don't like it, you don't ever have to go again."
Mhm.
And I came home so excited. Oh, it was such a critical nudge. I'm emotional because I often think about what would not have happened
Mm.
if that was not recommended.
Mhm.
It was so critical.
Yeah. Mm.
And speech team led to drama and
Mhm.
high school plays. It led to, I still applied to college with a two-dimensional art portfolio, but
Mhm.
uh, and got into art school at Syracuse, Visual
Mhm.
Performing Arts College at Syracuse University, and the way it worked was your freshman year you did all core art classes, and you could have gone the drama route, but as I said, I was more of a two-dimensional artist than a performing artist. But second year you declared your major, and I chose film. I
Mm.
remember
Interesting.
a critical conversation this time with my great uncle uh, when I was thinking that I would do graphic design in order to have a safe job so that
Mhm.
eventually I could do film, and he said, I'll never forget it. He said, "What do you want to do, Tom?" And I said, "I want to do film." He goes, "Then do it. And what are you
Hmm.
waiting for?"
Yeah.
Uh, so you could argue there was a second sub phase right there, second year of college.
Hmm.
So the big ones: Julie being old enough to play,
Right.
speech team, drama, and the trajectory toward art school, and eventually a film art degree with a drama minor.
Hmm.
And and then yeah, the move to California, and I did straddle the line between behind the camera and in front of the camera. You know, I was always studying acting. I studied with Kim Darby from True Grit. She was the young
Hmm.
woman in the John Wayne True Grit. She was John Cusack's mother in Better Off Dead. Really hilarious, wonderful woman. And I remember a day in class when I said to her, and it was another critical moment. I said, "Derb," we called her Derb. "Is there anything missing in me that would prevent me from doing this work?" I asked it in a negative. Is there anything missing?
Hmm.
She said no. In other words, do I have what it takes? The answer was yes, but I asked it in a negative. She said no, nothing is missing. It was so important for me to hear that because I had gone so many years cheerleading myself, telling myself that I could do this.
Hmm.
I needed my teacher to say I could. Thank God her answer was no, nothing is missing. And I changed the next week to follow that class. I changed all my hours at work. I went to part time. I studied more. Um,
Mhm.
I made do with less money. Bit the bullet and really doubled down. Tried to get an agent. Did get one for a while. Um, and then I think probably a really critical phase was finding my community in improvisational and stand up comedy in LA.
Mhm.
Many of
Mhm.
those people are still my friends today. My agent was somebody that I used to work with, used to act with. She had to step away from acting due to illness, and now she's an agent. And yeah, so that phase, that LA stand up comedy, improv
Mhm.
comedy, sketch comedy,
Oh my
always
God.
deep study of acting, beginning to
Mhm.
teach. The friend that I mentioned earlier who referred me to the kid who needed
Right,
transplanting,
right,
met
right.
that woman there at in that phase, all in that mix. Taught with her,
Mhm.
taught improv with her, taught kids, taught acting. Um, And it was in that phase, by the way, if you're curious about tying this
Mhm.
all together, that uh, uh, teaching ballroom dance was paying the bills.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was still a very artistic life, you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
And then, and this is always something that's tough to talk about, I felt that I developed psoriasis,
Mm.
and I felt that I could not go after on camera. I know now that it's just a little alarm that we're getting approaching the hour. I know now that that was wrong.
Mm.
But I believed that I couldn't do on camera because of my skin. I did.
Mhm.
It was not the only hang up about my appearance. I've
Right,
struggled with
right.
weight. I've a lot of things, and I just did not feel like I could go after it the way I wanted to.
Mhm.
Again, such a critical moment. I remember looking in a mirror and just seeing somebody that I just did not think was castable.
Mm.
And I needed nobody's help that day. I said out loud, I remember saying it out loud in my bathroom. Well, what about voiceover? It doesn't matter how you look,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And just as it's made me stop crying now,
Hey.
I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I remembered playing in this room. I remembered all the characters Julie and I did, the characters that we
Mm-hmm.
still do on our podcast. Every now and then we'll just do kid characters on the podcast. Like we're mid conversation as Tom and Julie, and then instantly we're characters from our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going through our childhood toys. That's the concept of my podcast.
Oh, cool,
It's
cool.
called Back Through the Basement. So we're going through all our toys and belongings in our
Oh,
parents'
that's
basement.
brilliant.
Yeah, it's fun. So I it cured me, and
Mm.
it gave me a whole new direction to focus on. So I took classes, I took training, I did coaching, I did all the things, bought a bad mic, eventually bought a better mic, all the things that everybody, pretty much everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things I would prefer not to have done, and I try and steer people away from doing now,
Mm-hmm.
missteps, wasted time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that could be, that certainly is a huge phase, huge chapter
Mm-hmm.
shift. And
Mm-hmm.
then I've got to talk about this last one. And I know I tried to be succinct, but it's such a huge question,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a question that my full answer here really gets you to know me. And if that's the goal of this interview, then we needed to take this time here. 2019, Mark Gus posted on Twitter. Who's ready to change their lives this weekend? That was the post. That was the tweet. And it was Twitter at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Who's ready to change their lives this weekend? And I'd been following him for quite some time. Mark Gus is the co-founder of ACM Talent.
He's my manager. Mm-hmm.
There you go. And I dug in and figured out what the heck he was talking about. Read the thread, and what's he
Mm-hmm.
referring to? And it was that's Voiceover Career Expo in LA, and it was near to where I lived, and I was like, oh. I only did one day that year.
Mm-hmm.
It was the only day I was available because I learned about it last minute, and you really get me, Tish. uh, I also, it was clear that he was going to be there, and I was like, oh, I'll have a chance to meet him. So I went for one day and participated in whatever it was that day. It was the same day that the CBS Spotlight winner happened, so I got to see that whole process, and CBS Audition Spotlight. And it was tremendous. And I met Joan, Rudy, and Mark.
Mm-hmm.
I had lunch with Mark. I introduced myself to him, and he's, oh, Tom Antonellis. Yeah, we've been following each other. I've been wanting to talk to you. And we sat down, and he devoted his entire lunch to me that day.
Wow.
And he gave me a salient piece of advice. He gave me a significant recommendation, Marilyn Wisner, for some career consultation.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest was really just taking an interest in me. And he's a Syracuse University alum too, by the way.
There you go.
And combined with what I saw from Joan Baker and her energy,
Mm-hmm.
how she danced into the room, and I bought her book and had her sign it, and people like Dave Walsh and Chuck Duran and Renee Villiers, and so many people that were on the stage that day that made me cry like I
Mm-hmm.
am now. I found my community. And I remember walking to my car in the parking lot of the hotel, that grim cement you know, of every parking garage you've ever been in. And I remember saying out loud, that's who I want to be around. I want those people to know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I want those people to know who I am.
Mm.
I
Wow.
called all those relationships into my world with that declaration. And they
Mm-hmm.
remain my mentors and some of my best friends. And I host a portion of that event now and have
Yeah.
for some years and will do so so long as they keep asking. And so that was the turning point of my voiceover career, the
Mm-hmm.
trajectory that I love that I'm on now,
Yeah.
where I learned how to make those professional relationships. Uh, it it was absolutely the beginning of the snowball rolling down the hill that becomes the career that I'm so happy about having. And
Right.
it's the only part of my career that has moved at a pace that is really much better than all those
Right.
other phases that I talked about with all those detours and all those
Right.
stepping
Well,
in poop and
it was the
this
momentum that built
yes
slowly and now is continuing to continue building momentum. So
right.
yeah. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You are so 100% from the heart. It is so powerful and so true. That's what we're doing. Um, so
Thank you, Tish.
what would you say were the three top ingredients of your success? Of your-
Persistence, number one.
Yes.
Absolutely persistence. Persistence beats resistance.
Yes. Yes.
This
Positive attitude.
absolutely, and
Hmm.
it is elusive some days.
Yes.
Okay, I won't BS anybody. Um, Humor is a very big part of my success.
Hmm.
Um, Wielding humor as an acting tool, being a comedian, being a comic, um,
Hmm.
being somebody who can access their emotions.
Yes. Clearly.
Yes.
Clearly, I love
And
that.
having no hangups about sharing them.
Yeah.
You know,
Powerful.
if yeah, this was an on brand interview.
That's good. That's good. That's what we want.
Business wise, I would also say business wise,
Hmm.
understanding business and understanding what it means to be a good business person and
Hmm.
how to treat your team, your friends, the people who would refer you that you would refer, the
Hmm.
your clients, my coaching clients. Oh my god, how much I love them and how
Hmm.
every coaching session is a chance while I'm providing a service to them and I'm
Hmm.
fully focused on them. They're allowing me to become better every day.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I don't know how many you asked for, but those are the big
That's
ones.
okay. Those are great. Those are great ingredients. We'll take them. Um, you've mentioned a bunch of things, but I'll ask a question. What are you proudest of in your voiceover career?
Wow. It's probably orbiting the spirit in which I was awarded Nava's B. Brad Award, Voiceover Community Award.
Mm.
I think I'm proudest of the fact, I think that my biggest work in this career is not yet done. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's in my future.
Mm.
I have private moments where I feel that I'm on the verge of a bigger breakthrough, a bigger level of being known,
Mm-hmm.
but I am known. And I think that I take great joy and great pride in that this community knows me the way it knows me because it
Mm-hmm.
is me. That is me,
Right.
you know?
Mhm.
So I think I hold sacred my the way I'm viewed by this community.
That's
And so
powerful.
you could call that a brand, you could call that a reputation, You could call that a, um, you know,
I would call it the essence of you,
yeah.
but that's my experience of you.
Thank
You have
you,
an essence that is you live who you are, and that who you are impacts and ripples wherever you go. So that's
thank
good.
you.
That's powerful. And I know you've talked about a lot of challenges and fears, but
Uh-huh.
if I asked you the same question on the other side, because light and dark go together, right?
Mm.
What's your biggest fear or challenge in your voiceover career?
I'm, I'm a, I'm, I have a healthy fear of the day that I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I, I have quite a, I have quite a relationship with fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a book that an audiobook that I did, a children's audiobook called My Best Friend, comma, Fear. And it was powerful. Um, I fear losing control at the way at which I keep fear at bay.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
or if my relationship with fear were to change to a place where I couldn't manage myself, I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid of that.
Interesting.
So I fear losing my controls,
Mm-hmm.
circumstances being outside my ability to weather them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that's
I haven't
powerful.
I haven't failed to meet any challenge that's been placed in front of me yet,
Mm-hmm.
but there have been a few that have really taken a toll and really tested me, and I worry about the test I can't pass.
Mm. That's a powerful response. Yeah. And I think, one of the internal training, the dojo, the internal training is the heart of everything that we do. Like that's always first. And it also seems like you have such a powerful, I hear you. I hear I hear the through line through your work and your career and your everything is navigating, like you're adjusting your sails all the time, and sometimes it's stormy and sometimes the wind takes you, but I hear you have this process and you understand the process of adjusting your sails all the time,
Thank you,
in
Tish.
a very powerful
That's
way.
very that helps.
Mm-hmm.
That helps categorize exactly. Yes,
Hmm.
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I think
That's
that,
well put.
that's what we train people. It's not your fear is going to go away.
No,
We learn to mitigate it. And as we
yeah,
move forward, there's going to be other things like, oh my God, now I'm here. Like, what is that going to be? And
yeah,
like it doesn't go away. We just figure out how to navigate it, mitigate it, navigate
yes.
it,
That's why
embrace
I'm
it as it comes. So,
that's why I'm so grateful for people who are leaders in the community, like yourself, like Joan and Rudy in the Sovis team, or J. Michael Collins and Anna with the VO Atlanta team,
mhm,
or the One Voice team,
mhm,
or Nava's team, right?
mhm,
SAG after too, if you're a union member. But
mhm,
when for example, how many actors over how many years, voice actor or actor, have worried and agonized over earning enough in a year to get themselves health insurance,
mhm,
right? Or if they're not in the union, just can't, have to keep a 9 to 5 job in order to have that one thing
mhm.
covered,
Right.
living less than the artistic life that they could lead otherwise, because of needing that thing that just can't be gotten any other way, until Nava
Mm,
notices the change in the law that allows for association based healthcare. And now all you got to be is a member of this association, which does have
Mhm.
requirements. You got to meet those
Mhm.
requirements, but
Game changer.
game changer,
Mhm.
right? So I don't know how I got on this, but I got on this, you know,
We were
that
talking about mindset, heart set, and
and
weathering,
help,
navigating. Yeah. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Nobody could figure this out. Nobody for decades. Nobody figured it out till Tim Friedlander and Karin Gilfrey said, let's figure this out,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And now that infrastructure exists.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't truly know how this links to what you were saying, but
No,
it
it's
really
it's
it's just about I think we were also talking about pivoting and
we were talking about fear actually, how
thank
it's
you.
inherent. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
somebody comes along and gives you a way to fight a
and
better.
shows you what it is to be joyously fearless too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and then it's interesting, everything that we're talking about too, and I hear it in your work about, one of my proudest moments in my voiceover, not only my voiceover career, but the career of the dojo, is early on in the dojo years, being at being meeting Tim Friedlander at a moment when he was just about to give up. And then
He talks about that. Yeah.
having
That's
meeting someone from the dojo be like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. So like it's we all do this for each
yeah.
other. We go like, hold on, let me show you, let me hold you here
Yeah.
so you can see what all you've got going. And
Yeah.
then we do it for the next person, and then we do it for the next person, and then that person does it for you.
I
And
love that.
it's how it goes. Yeah. Um, I think you answered this before when you were sharing about your sister, and are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Uh I think certainly I was an introvert first. Um
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I think I walked the line,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. I and that if I think I'm a pie graph, and that
Huh? What are the
for
pieces of
a
the
good
pie?
amount of time of my life I've been 50-50, but I think perhaps a little bit of the introvert had came back a bit
Mm.
during COVID, changing the 50-50 to something else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think I have to push myself a little bit more to be social and to be out
Mm-hmm.
and be, on
That's a different
than perhaps
relationship.
the
Yeah.
older than pre-COVID Tom or
Mm-hmm.
a decade ago Tom or something like that. But I don't I don't identify as either one. I don't think about it. So I really do feel like I'm a pie graph half and half. I certainly know that I'm an introvert by history, and
Right,
I'm
right,
an
right.
extrovert by career. You know,
Yeah, it's really powerful. Well, I think when this, I love this question because I think it also just emphasizes to everyone that this particular career really required, like the real sweet spot of this is to be 50-50,
I think so.
because half of the time we have to sit here by ourselves,
Yes,
and if that drives you, is that's like, oh,
it's
and
a
half the
challenge for
time
people for whom it drives them crazy. Yeah,
yeah, we have to be reaching out. We have to be connecting. We have to be interrelating. And we have to find joy in that and find energy in that. So
for sure.
it really is this both, like finding that equilibrium is really the sweet spot for this.
I agree.
Um, Now, this is an interesting question for you because you've created a life where you are doing it everywhere. But if you could do Voyo from anywhere, where would it be? And I know you've been on trips with JMC and stuff like that,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so I think that's an interesting thing because you have created a bicoastal lifestyle. So that's an achievement. But is there some place you're like, oh, that would be the place?
Um, Well, I will say, I love Switzerland.
Mm,
It's one of the places I visited that was truly amazing. I love France. Um, haven't spent nearly enough time in those places in my life. Just glimpses, and I loved it. I loved what I saw. Um, but the where I want to be is more symbolic than actual.
mm,
I think I want to do voiceover from a place where my contribution as a human artist is valued. I want
mm,
to do voiceover from a place where I am getting the roles that truly allow me to share my fullest gifts. I
mm-hmm,
want to do voiceover from a place of more, I think, of more fame. That might be ego, but
mm,
I like the idea of being somebody who is who I am, the way you know me, but
mm-hmm.
is more broadly known and maybe reaching more people. For
That's
example,
powerful.
at a con, if I could have this interview at a convention, I feel like so many people in that convention audience could maybe think
Mm.
that this is possible for them.
Right, right, right. That's powerful.
I'd like to be doing voiceover from a place that doesn't have the AI vulture
Mm,
circling it.
mm-hmm,
Or if it's there, it is no longer a vulture circling. It's a tool and a pal and a friend and
mm-hmm.
a revenue stream that allows you to do work with your virtual version of yourself that is
Right, right,
the
right.
less than thrilling
Exactly.
work that maybe is more like an employee.
Mm-hmm,
your your virtual your
mm-hmm.
AI Tom is it is an employee bringing in money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the positive view. I love that vision. I love that
Yeah.
vision. Um,
So
what
if
would
that's a place, that's where I want to be.
I like that. I like it. That's great. That's a great articulation. Yeah. What would you say your VO motto is? You shared a lot
Persistence
of,
beats resistance.
yes, persistence beats resistance.
Yeah,
Lovely.
yeah, and certainly the positive attitude that I shared, that is I don't know that that's a motto, but that is something I've the last 2 years has been really needed. But I think
Mm.
persistence beats resistance is something that I've lived quite some time.
Yes. Testament too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and knowing what you know now, what would you say to yourself at the beginning?
I love you.
Mm,
You're loved. You're lovable. Your instincts are right.
mm-hmm,
Don't give up. Start everything sooner.
mm-hmm,
That's the only regret I have, if you
mm-hmm.
could call it a regret.
Right, right.
Or if I could go back and tweak one thing, I would just start every journey I started sooner. And I
Mm-hmm.
would, instead of saxophone, I would have suggested piano. I think piano I would have stuck with. Saxophone I clearly did not stick with. So yeah,
Yay. Well, Tom, it's been such a pleasure to get to spend some time with you and have you share your heart and your kind soul and your just powerfully, powerfully, your powerful soul. You have a
thank you, Tish.
strength. You have this warm strength that I think embodies the heartbeat of the voiceover world. Like, yeah, this heart and power together. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
joining
much.
us here and sharing all of this. And then oh we'll see you at as the sensei. Uh,
Yes.
if you want to share, if they want to share here, how people can keep in touch with you if they want to
Oh,
work with
sure.
you, if they want to refer you for anything voiceover wise,
Yes, indeed.
if they want to work with you as a dialect coach, how do people best keep in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. For sure. Probably my website's the best way to reach me. So
Mhm.
tomantonellisvo.com. It's actually right here.
Look, right there.
Yeah. So definitely reach out to me there through the contact form. And then you can follow me on Instagram at Tom Antonellis, all one word. On formerly Twitter at Tom underscore Antonellis. Don't get me started on the fact that that underscore was needed. Bugs me. I'm LinkedIn as well, and you can like Tom Antonellis on Facebook. So I'm a quadruple poster for now. Twitter's taken a back seat because I'm not happy with their AI
Mhm.
policies. So I do minimal stuff there. I often will post there and say for my full thoughts on this, visit my other social media.
Yeah.
So I promote more so LinkedIn and Instagram.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, so lovely to spend this time together, and I
Thank
look
you.
forward to more and all the goodness ahead.
Thank you so much, Tish. I appreciate it. And thank you for your kind words and thank you for this opportunity. I loved it. I loved every minute,
You're
even the parts that brought me to tears because
so-
it's
That
a
love
beautiful thing to reflect on.
tears are not exclusive. Tears are often tears come from love. So
For sure.
yeah.
Thank you. Hugging you.
Thank you. Received.
Bye bye.